welcome back to our second in a series of hopefully many videos from Blueglow Electronics, focused on the restoration, servicing, and sometimes building of what I would consider hi-fi audio, vintage electronics, and mostly focused on tube gear. Every once in a while I work on some solid state stuff. Matter of fact, I've worked on more Marantz gear in the last 6 months than I have in the last 5 or 6 years. I don't know why I've gotten to be known as the Marantz guy in the Carolinas here, so people just keep bringing them to me. At any rate, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Mcintosh 225. This is actually my personal copy. I bought this thing in 1983 or 4. I was probably in high school at that point in time, making $60 a week, making pizzas or whatnot, a part-time job. And I bought this amp for right around $300. I can't remember if it was 270 or 290 bucks, something like that. Got it locally, basically an estate sale type item. And it's not a mint amp. Got a little bit of scratches and scuffs here, but all the lettering's there, and for the most part it's all intact. Probably a good solid 8 out of 10. At any rate, the reason for the video is, one, to talk about the Mcintosh 225 a little bit, but two, to talk to you about some servicing I want to do on this. It's my own personal amp, and like I said, and a couple things I want to do to it. So let me talk to you a little bit about the amp first. This one was made in around 1962. We get the bottom off. We can actually look at the date stamp in there and see when it was exactly made. But it's a really solid unit. I have probably used it in excess of 20 hours a week for going on 20 plus years now, at least, maybe closer to 30. I spent a lot of vinyl. I'm a vinyl junkie. So, 3 or 4 LPs a day type thing in the evenings. And this is the amp that I always end up going back to. I've got, personally in my amp collection, probably 30 or 40 nice tube amps and of various makes, models, and kinds. And I've probably worked on 200 or 300 different amps over the years as they came through the shop. And, it always comes right back here for me. I'm not saying there's not a better amp out there. A lot of that gets to be very subjective, and different people will have their different taste. I've got quite a few single-ended amps, 300B, 45, 2A3 setups. And they, it's a different kind of beast. And, I like them for different things. If I'm listening to a lot of jazz, I'll go down the single-ended path. But for good old rock and roll, I just find it hard to beat this Mcintosh 225. It's not the most powerful amp Mcintosh ever made, but by many it's been considered one of the better soundings of all of them. So just some of my personal opinions about the 225. I always seem to keep coming back around to it. And seems to be my go-to amp. This thing will stay with me until I die, or otherwise. But what I want to talk to you about, these 4 tubes that are in it right here, are up until about 3 or 4 weeks ago, were some new old stock, realistic, new in the box. There's the boxes they came in. What these are called, wafer-based. So fairly rare, 7591 tubes. And they were new in the box. And what happened was, I had a set of these 4 Electro Harmonics, just like these right here, running in this amp for a little over 2 years, and one of them finally gave up the ghost. And when it did, I went ahead and pulled off 4 of them, because I like to run a solid match quad in these things. It is a push-pull amplifier, and so I like to keep them balanced really well. So I pulled the 3 good ones out, threw them over here in the bin, and I might use one of those one day servicing somebody's equipment, because it just might happen to match out perfectly, And I threw the dead one away, but I didn't want to quit listening to this thing. I really didn't want to take it off the bench or off the stereo shelf. I had some surgery back in November, and honestly right now I'm on the rules of the doctor. I can't lift more than 10 pounds, so picking this thing up to move it over here to swap out tubes and rebias them was not really in my future at that point in time. So what we did was I went and grabbed 4 brand new tubes and dropped in it, and they're no longer new old stock, but I could call them almost new. And these things are probably worth more as collector's items now, or just vintage tubes, than they're worth running in this amp. So I went ahead and ordered a brand new quad of these Electro Harmonix 7591s. I'm on about my 3rd or 4th set of these now, and in this amp, they seem to last me about 2 years, seems to be the going rate. And but they've been really solid performers. They sound great. Very quiet tubes. You get easy to get matched quads. Full matched quad shipped to my house was about $82 or $84. I think they were $79 plus shipping. So really hard to beat that. These tubes are considerably larger, as you can see, and actually look really good in the Mcintosh 225 with the much larger bottles than the original factories. And that's been a challenge. I mean, it's been great that you could get 7591 tubes for the last 10 years or so, but the challenge has been a lot of gear, especially Scott gear, the 299, some of the Fisher gear, whatnot. Those bigger bottle tubes just won't fit in the chassis with the covers on them. So that's why these older ones have gone, smaller bottles have gone up in value a lot, because people with that kind of gear had to seek out and find older, new old stock stuff. You can see here that the bases on those are different than traditional bases that you would see on most octal tubes here. Like I say, these are what you call the old wafer bases. And got a whole box here of 7591 tubes. I buy these bins at one of the local big box retailers. I probably got, I don't know, 40 or 50 of these things in the other room over there, and they're filled with 7591s, any kind of audio tube you could name. I've got bins and bins of them. And before they go, the requirement before it goes in my bin is it gets tested. It gets labeled with how it was tested, and then it makes it into one of my bins. And sometimes some of it for me is just a collector. Might when I get old and retired, and might sell them off one day, who knows. And then the other part is I use them in servicing stuff, especially the ones I pulled out of match quads or whatnot. That's a really neat set. I've actually got a quad here of Sylvania match pairs. Boy, haven't seen that in ages. Matter of fact, very rarely do you see that type of setup anymore. But there again, probably more for the collector than for the enthusiast. So I'd rather run new tubes that I can readily buy in my gear and wear that out than these old vintage tubes that seem to keep going up in value and that you can't replace these days. So a lot of my gear, I run new stuff, and probably in one of my upcoming videos, I'll take the time to give a 20-minute dissertation on my thought on vintage tubes versus some of the new old stock tubes. That's probably a video in itself. So we'll stay away from that topic right now. It is a very slippery slope. You can see on the front of this thing, this is an old Fisher. Probably came out of some piece of Fisher gear I serviced over the years. But it's a Fisher really made by Mullard 12AX7. That's a really nice matched tube, and I got it there on the front end. These are some 5814 WAs, some new old stock tubes that I picked up a while back off a guy near me. Really nice tubes. And then the 12BH7s are some I think they're labeled ICO or something along that lines, but you can see the little ridges on the top. Those are really Mullard tubes. And all the tubes on the front end here are, I tested them out, balanced them, and made sure they were in good shape. So the goal here of this project is to insert the new 7591s into this and return these back into the bin over here. However, to do so, I got to flip this unit upside down, and inside I made one modification and one modification only really to this amp, and that is I put in a potentiometer to help with biasing the output tubes. 7591s. I don't know what it was about all the old vintage manufacturers, but they like to run those things hot. And the tube life just wasn't that long, and probably has to do with a lot of the manufacturers. As you can see right here, this was an H.H. Scott tube. They also resold tubes, so you'd buy an amp from H.H. Scott dealer. You'd run it for a year. Whoa, your tubes got weak. It's time to go back to the dealer and buy a new set. They would install them for you. They'd make a little money off the install, and then they'd make some money off of reselling you the tubes. So I'm not sure that's why they did it. It's just a hunch of mine. So we won't. Hang on one second. And we're back. Sorry about that. I was mid-sentence and the phone rang and kind of distracted me, and I realized that I was about the only one home, so I needed to get the phone. So I dropped it down. I believe we were just talking about the general tubes set up in this thing. At any rate, so I'm going to flip this thing over and get inside of it. I can show you the bias pot I've added. The only other thing I've ever done to this thing is replace the electrolytics in it. And I replaced the selenium rectifier with a diode setup. But for the most part, all the audio path stuff still factory in this thing. And I've been reading a lot about Terry Dyer, who's an expert on Mcintosh stuff. A lot of his recommendations hover around replacing the bumblebee caps inside these things. They can get leaky over time, and I always wonder, well, what made that tube go out? Maybe I had some maybe I got one of those starting to leak, letting some DC through, causing one of these things to red plate or whatnot. And so I think I want to check that out and make some decisions on what I want to do. So first part of the video will be about retubing this thing and rebiasing it. Probably a second video in the series at some point, which if I decide to order some parts and replacing this thing, would be after those showed up, and we could show those actually be installed. And then we get the thing up on the bench and check it out. A couple of things we would do, run it through the audio analyzer. Love the 8903 HP audio analyzer here. It's one of my favorite pieces of equipment. I've got some Pete Millett software I run with that. I've seen a few other guys on the internet running similar stuff. It's probably because these things are really popular. Over here on the other side, running HP 3582A FFT spectrum analyzer. It's just a beautiful unit. I actually own two of these, believe it or not. I picked this one up a while back, had it calibrated. It's an amazing unit. And then I was out doing some surplus digging this summer, and believe it or not, I picked up one of these for 20 bucks. Got it home, had to replace some capacitors in it, but it is in spec, right in line with this fully calibrated. This is a NIST calibrated unit right here, so I know it is accurate. And the second one I've got, probably traded off for something, cool amp or something from somebody at some point in time, but for right now it's just sitting in the storage unit. At any rate, let's get this thing upside down. We'll kind of take it from there. And we're back. As you can see, this amp is not mint. Most of the scratches on it, honestly, are here on the bottom. And you can see, like, if you get up close to the chroming on this thing here and kind of look at it, you can see a little scratch in the chrome here or there. But yeah, it's a fairly solid amp. I've had it a long time. Will probably go to the grave with me, if I haven't already said that. Anyway, this is interesting. It had some kind of pan lock or some type of, I'm not sure, slide lock things on it when I got it. And looks like it's made to lock into a chassis or a cabinet or something. Anyway, it helps hold it up off the ground. So I put some real thick felt pads on here. And it doesn't look great, but when you flip it upside down, you never see it. And it slides really easily on my furniture and doesn't scratch up the furniture. So just thought I'd show you the bottom of this. Let me get the cover off and I'll be right real back. Quick before I take the bottom off. I've got these rails off. There were 6 screws, 1, 2, 3. There's one here in the middle and 3 more screws here that I had to remove to get the bottom off. But you can see a lot of the other Mcintosh gear I've worked on. You can see these little holes right here, here, there, and there. And those were actually where the original little rubber feet mounted. So Probably won't go back there. I love the felt pad, slides around easy, and he sits it off the ground about 1/4 of an inch almost, and so probably leave it the way it is. It's been that way for 30 years for me now. Be right back. Here we go. So I got the bottom off, and one of the things I love about the Mcintosh gear is just the craftsmanship on these things. It's amazing. I don't know if you see here, but this is a little bit of nostalgia for me. These little push-through snap-on retainers, and then the other side you can see kind of the Mcintosh 225 emblem here. But I restored a lot of old vintage cars in my day as well. It's been one of my other hobbies, and you see those used a lot inside of on the other side of fenders and whatnot to hold emblems on vehicles or whatnot. But it's one of the things about the Mcintosh. They kind of got kind of remind me of the old muscle car era. They're just very well made, very solid units, and the engineering and craftsmanship is superb on these things. See what I can show you here on the inside, so I can get a little bit better light here. You can see this is a capacitor I replaced at one time. These authentic caps here, it's company C Tech Electronics, which they're advertised in, I think, Jonesville, North Carolina, which is about 22 miles from me, but I'm not sure who the guys are. I probably ran into them many times and just don't know who they are, but they sell these kits on eBay. It's about as cheap as you can get them, and like I said, I've put those in quite a few Mcintosh amps, so I've sent them a lot of business over time. This is a little bias board here. You can see the diode here where I replaced the selenium rectifier, replaced a little electrolytic capacitor there, and then I drilled a little hole here in the side of this chassis right here, and I mounted a 10K potentiometer, and it goes back through using some brown cloth wire to the other side here, and as you can see, it kind of wires up. The purpose of that is so that I can adjust the bias, and if you'll notice inside here I have marked so connect a ground lead to the chassis somewhere like right here or right up here. Then you go to pin 6 of the tubes down here, which happens to be right here on the other side of these little resistors on every tube, and you need to find minus 21 volts DC, and you adjust this 10K until you have that, and then you have the bias set properly on this unit. You can see here little carbon resistors. These things, when you lose a tube, these things are known for going out, so I've replaced 2 of those over time as well. Probably need to go in here and replace these with some smaller values. Those look like 2-watt resistors. Probably should be 1/4 or 1/2 watt there. The reason being, if a tube goes out, I want one of those resistors to blow instead of the transformer, and that starts to take a lot of current before it would blow. So don't want that. Don't want to cause any, because boy, when one of the output transformers in this thing, or the power transformer, goes, it's a parts unit at that point. You just better pray somebody else has a parts unit. I have replaced here on the main board 2 electrolytics that went out. Those are 100 microfarad, 63 volts. These were some real high quality Philips electrolytics that I had picked up a while back, but that honestly, it's probably been 10 or 15 years since I replaced those. It may be time to do that as well. But at any rate, I don't know if you can see them real well right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the Bumblebee capacitors. Here's another one over here on this board. Here's one right here on this side that really need to be replaced from what I'm reading everywhere. They're just known for kind of going out over time, and they call these dog bone capacitors, kind of the nickname for these. These seem to last forever and never have any problems. So I believe what I'm going to do is, man, I tell you, I know resistor values like the back of my hand, but knowing the color chart for the old Bumblebee capacitors, I do not off the top of my head, so not even going to claim I do. So I'll end up looking these things up online, figuring out the values. Probably some Russian K40 paper innels is what I'll go back in here with. And I'll have to figure out what voltage value are on these things. It's probably pretty high, 600 or maybe even 1,000 volts is probably what were originally put in this thing. And so I am going to make this a 2-part video. I'm going to figure out the parts I need to order. I'll write them all down. I'll add that into the second video, and we'll order the parts, and we'll basically just leave this thing setting us. I'll take it off the bench, but I'll set it aside, and we'll leave it till the new parts come in. If I don't have them, I've got tons of those Russian paper and oil capacitors, especially if they're 0.47 or 33 or 0.22, anything of that nature. I got dozens and dozens of those. But if it's anything odd, we'll figure that out quickly, and we will order something different. I was going to look in here and see if we could find the date code on this amp. Yep, I was wrong earlier. See there, 265. This is not quite as old as I thought it was. Actually, I had a friend of mine had his amp in here recently, and did similar thing to it. Went through it. His was maybe his was the one that was made in 1962, but been a solid performer all the way through, and this thing should continue to for years on end. So I'm going to figure out what I need to order at this point, and like I said, write it all down, look it up. And then we'll get this stuff ordered and get this thing back on the bench and make part 2 of this video. In the meantime, if you got any questions about the Mcintosh 225, be glad to answer it. There's tons of info out there on the on various forums with info about the 225. It's a great thing about one of these. There's no lack of info out there about them, so shouldn't have any problem finding them. And I will tell you, if you get a chance to snag one of these at a decent price at any point, please do so. You will not regret it. They seem to be up there, you know, a really nice one, 8 out of 10 or so, kind of the way this one might be. A good two grand plus at this point, and even a fairly rough one will bring 1,400 or so on any given day. So definitely worth snagging one if you can. Hey, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video today. Like I say, I've got me a new camera on order. This one is just my iPhone 5S, and it's probably not the most conducive device for this. I want to get something the audio is a little better. I have to talk really loud and stay really close to the camera on this. Plus, I want something that I can put on a small tripod mount so you don't get all this movement from my hand. And we'll just continue to do that, continue to hope people start watching my videos. And like I said, I've got, I was out for surgery for a good 2 or 3 months here recently. And in that short period of time, I probably got 20 pieces backlogged right now. So that's 20 projects you can watch me do. Plus, the number of projects I have of my own gear that I buy stuff and I hoard it away. And I say one day I'm going to get around to fixing that or retubing it or recapping it or whatever. The list is long, so I've got rooms and rooms full of stuff. And so hopefully over time you'll get to see a large sampling of stuff. Stay tuned and give me feedback. I want to know how this is doing for you. If you don't like it, if you don't like my voice, you don't like what I'm doing, please tell me. I'll continue to improvise and improve. By the way, these little connectors right here, you can get them off eBay for about $8 for a set of 4. They slide right in and mount really tight into any traditional screw mount terminal lug, speaker lug. And then your banana plugs plug straight into these things, and so much easier from using little wires and stripping them around and screwing them down. And inevitably you got a little strand of wire that gets over onto one of the ones beside of it and causes issues. It's just a great way to go about it. I thought I'd show you those. All right, we're going to wrap it up there, and thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and the holidays are approaching, so happy holidays, everybody, if I don't make another video before then.